Welcome all. Now I will officially start this webinar. Thanks for joining us. My name is Sander Janssen from Wageningen University and Research and the Digital Agri Hub. We are hosting today's webinar on the use of generative AI for agriculture, trying to see what the potential is of this technology for agricultural applications. We have an exciting setup of speakers, so thanks for joining us. As I just mentioned, but maybe you were still in the lobby, we hope to make this partly interactive, so please ask questions in the chat or through the Q&A. If you want to, if you have questions, speakers, then please drop it there and we can pick it up quite fast and answer it. We have at some point the more interactive parts of the session, so hopefully this helps all. I will do the sort of time management and try to keep everybody on track today, and it's my pleasure to do so. So we got, of course, quite big ambition with this, and we hope to get through it all, and we need your help and support with that. Now, it is quite complex topics, GenAI and for agriculture, so we might not be able to cover all topics and questions that you may have, so please bear with us also there and share what you would like to see in the future and share what you, and let's go ahead from there. I mean, maybe as a starting point, while I start sharing with a short presentation there, is that we had an exchange on our D groups some while ago about generative AI that was started by Fadi, who will speak later in this event. And that was then he asked a challenging question like, what can generative AI do for regenerative agriculture? We discussed that a bit, and there were lots of responses to that question on our D groups, and hence we thought let's organize a webinar to go into this, and maybe let's organize more webinars. So Fadi will come back to that part later. But I think it's really nice to see that this was sort of a bottom-up idea initiated by Fadi to start discussing this, and then it came together to this webinar. So we're very happy for all of you to join, and that in this way the community can work. And this, you know, for marketing and digital agri, we are more I would say the enabler of this than really the full experts. So we are also happy with the people that we gathered today to help us understand all these questions. I now started sharing my screen for a minute just to give you the general feeling of what we will do. And the basic idea is that I think for the last 2 years, this whole idea of generative AI and large language models and maybe RAGs or other technical terms you may have heard have been everywhere. They have been in the news. They have been added to tools. Every company comes with its own version of this. And we thought, you know, what does this mean for agriculture? And can we see as in our role as Digital Agri Hub and trying to sort of foresee all the developments and maybe help these developments get some prominence, like what's happening in that direction with agriculture and how could we more deploy it in our field. And so hence we took this is a slide that we just often use to show all the developments of what's happening. We took this idea and worked a bit with it, just to show you a bit what people have in mind when they talk about LLMs. We worked last year with the knowledge organization, and we asked them through this sort of question and answer system, what would you think the most promising use of this technology would be in your organization? And then you get very different answers based on what people think. But interestingly, most of the respondents then saw it as a way to classify or summarize documents quickly. So I have a lot of documents, and then can we quickly get that together? The other one was to write an advice or proposal, and that's already a bit more complicated because you have to combine different parts of knowledge and into something bigger. So that's another one. But then the 3 smaller ones with more chatting and co-piloting chatbots. So this is just to give you a flavor of you know all the things that people foresee with this technology, and then the question is how does this apply to agriculture? So hence that's why we set up this webinar to really figure out what do these developments in Gen AI mean for agriculture, especially low middle income countries. So we built this as the first webinar. Then the second webinar is to follow, and Fadi and Laura will later on speak about that idea and with their own perspective on this second webinar. The setup for this webinar, I put it here on the right side of the screen so that you're all aware of what's coming. I'm doing this short introduction now. Then we go into 3 flash presentations by Digital Green, Ubuntu AI, and Kisan AI to really show what solutions are already out there that people can already using and where they're thinking. And then we go to Henry van Bergsteen from FAO to talk about what their explorations of Gen AI were in FAO's initiative and what they've learned. Inder Kumar will share how we see digital AI chatbot for digital agri about hopefully help you in discovering digital agriculture. We have a brief set of questions and answers, so please type your questions in the chat and share them there so that we can handle them and hopefully provide insightful answers. This is more the informative part, like informative questions. We prepared a bit in Mentimeter that I will share to find out what your perspectives is on these technologies and where you stand, and then we close with a panel discussion with some questions that we gathered. But please share also your question in the chat if you have questions for the panel that you would like all speakers to reflect on. And Fadi and Laura will close with a sort of preview of their own perspective and a preview to the next webinar. If you have questions to that, hopefully we can, or suggestions, we can also take them there. So I hope this is clear. Then I will stop sharing my presentation now, and we will move to Jonah from Digital Green. If you could share your insights from what you did at Digital Green and how your solution works, that would be fantastic. Thanks, Jonah.
Great. I'll kick it off. If you can help me by sharing the screen. Great. And I'll get started. So you can go on to the next slide. So there's over, you can go on to the next slide. So there's over 500 million smallholder farmers in the world right now. And climate change, as you know, is posing a great new threat to their livelihoods and our global food systems. So at the same time, their farming practices have largely remained unchanged. So a really big important question that we're all asking right now is how can we grow more food with less environmental impact while we also lift these smallholder farmers out of poverty? Agricultural extension, which is often tasked with this, is often really expensive, exclusionary, and these extension agents are overburdened. They often cover something like 1,000 farmers for one of them. And the information that they provide is top-down, is too general, and it often doesn't meet farmers' needs. So the big question that Digital Green has been working on is how do we really increase the speed, the effectiveness, and also the inclusion of these extension systems. For the past 15 years, some of you may know Digital Green as an organization that has created over 7,000 farmer-to-farmer videos. We've reached over 7 million farmers and really had powerful outcomes with this methodology. But where we are now, because of the latest advances with AI, over the past year and a half, we've been working on and deploying Farmer Chat. What this is AI-enabled assistant that delivers AI advisory to extension agents and to farmers. It is multimodal, so farmers can use their voice, they can text, or they can upload images to diagnose challenges on the farms. And it's also really location and season specific. We've also enabled it in multiple languages, such as Swahili, Hindi, Telugu, for the locations where we work, which are India, Ethiopia, Nigeria, and Kenya. And if you can click to the next. We actually have been reaching quite a few farmers and extension agents with this tool. Right now, Over 90% of our users are farmers. We have about 165,000 users and about 2 million queries. And I just want to show you some of the interesting things that we've been finding out. First of all, for the first time, what we see is that farmers are the ones driving conversation. The thing that you see on the very left of your screen is topic modeling that we've done of farmer questions during the rainy season in Kenya, where we see that all of a sudden in March, there's a cluster of questions, and that is a really dark spot in the map around pest and disease management. So in real time, we're seeing what the users are interested in because we're amassing so many questions that they're asking. We've also started to do with 60 decibels as well as some other partners, some initial surveys to understand how are our users deploying this in real time in their farms. And some of the interesting things that we're finding is that for many, this is a digital type of service that they're using for the very first time. Many are reporting an improved quality of life within 45 days of starting to use Farmer Chat. And they're also starting to report things like increased confidence and time saved when they have access to this tool. We also are really interested in, well, what happens? What is the adoption loop that we see? Are farmers actually trusting and applying the advice that they're receiving on Farmer Chat? And we have some initial evidence for Kenya where 30% of farmers are reporting adoption. And we are gearing up to do an RCT there over the course of the summer. If you can go to the next slide. So now I want to share a little bit about what is next and what are the things that we are working on to really improve the delivery and the tech back end for this for our Farmer Chat advisor. One of the things that we're really interested in is how do we really continue to bridge the gap between advisory, so these diagnostics and this information that our chatbot is delivering. And so we're working particularly on two kinds of things. One is how do we send really personalized and dynamic behavioral nudges? Right now, farmers can ask things that they're interested in, but there's also a necessity to shift towards more innovative practices, to send alerts and to really, for example, move farmers towards more natural or regenerative practices. So we've been sending and also evaluating this behavioral nudges. Another thing that we're doing is building in an agentic service layer so farmers can not just ask for advice, but they can also discover and make purchases of various inputs within the app itself. The other big thing, and I'm sure that other speakers will speak about this, is how do we continue to improve the content? We have deployed a RAG instance, and we've done a lot with bringing real-time APIs like weather and market pricing into our app. But the two big things that we're working on right now is how do we really bring in user-generated content? So much information, indigenous knowledge is locked in with our users. How can we enable a two-way communication and peer learning within our app? And then the other thing is how can we bring in really dynamic decision support models, things like feed ration that can really specify information to the farmer's location needs and in particular agroecological conditions. And finally, there's still a lot more to do to make sure that these LLMs are benchmark and that we're testing them and they're really safe and reliable for users to deploy on the ground. So the things that we're doing now is building a human in the loop an evaluation platform where we take questions that have been answered and experts and users review them to be able to build and fine-tune a small model that is really tuned into agriculture as a primary use. And increasingly, we've been putting these data sets and things that we've been doing online, so you can find some things that we've used and some of our golden Q&As on Hugging Face. The idea is that one organization alone cannot build all of the infrastructure needed so how can we help other organizations not reinvent the wheel, and also incentivize other users to come and work with us on things like fine-tuning multiple low-resource languages and really building the content repository that's going to make this really work for smallholder farmers. And the last slide that I'll share is that we're really interested in obviously improving yields and productivity for smallholder farmers. We're hoping that we start seeing improvements like 25% increase in income and reaching over the next 5 years over 8 million farmers. But the other thing that we really are hoping to see is really a radical decrease in what it does, what it costs to be able to shift farmers' practices and help them adopt new improved practices. We saw that in-person extension costs around $35 per person. Through randomized control trials with our video-based advisory, we're able to bring that down to about $3.50 over the last 15 years that we've been working in the space. And really our goal is, can we use AI, can we use these LLMs and improvement in generative AI to make it 100 times more cost effective and really bring down the cost per adoption per practice to something around 35 cents. So this is our aim and what we're hoping to do and work towards. So happy to answer any questions. And if somebody wants to try, they can download Farmer Chat and play. But it's only available on an Android app. So if you have Apple products, you won't be able to use it right now.
Thanks, Jonah, for this overview of Farm Chat. We quickly go to the next one. And please put any questions you may have, Jonah, in the question and answers so that we can see them there. Peter, can I ask you from Ubuntu AI to give your pitch?
Wonderful, and thank you so much, Jonah. Thank God I have an Android phone, so I was able to connect. You see, by the way, you see a lot of commonalities with what Jonah was saying. I want to, as Ubuntu, we are presenting a project that is a Horizon Europe project, Food Safety for Africa. So I'll talk about harnessing collective intelligence, so the combination of artificial intelligence and human expertise for food safety in Africa, which is a project funded by it's a Horizon Europe project where among the many partners, Wageningen University is also at the very core, and you see some of the other partners here. And so we, with Ubuntu, is really sitting at the intersection of food safety and AI/LLMs in this case. And just a little bit about the food safety. The numbers are just staggering. The number of deaths, but also the number of acute illnesses worldwide, in Africa per year, over more than 90 million. So it is a massive issue. We focus on the informal market. And the background to, and one of the reasons why this is such a big issue is that we've seen over the last decades in increasing inequality in the African food system between the large farms and the smallholder farms. It's actually quite interesting that large farms in general that are focused on exports towards, among others, Europe, have become very much digitally empowered, have access to financing, have built core capabilities in food safety and what have you not. Unfortunately, the gap between the large farmers and the smallholder farms have only increased and continue to increase, by the way. And so the overall intent of the project and the intent of the partnership in the longer term is to really reduce that gap. And as some of your colleagues at the Wageningen University would say, create kind of a mezzanine level between the two. And that's what we are focusing on. Now, moving towards AI and LLMs, which is obviously, as you know, an amazing tool, there are still significant issues, though, as we leverage those tools for farming and agriculture in Africa. hallucinations. One of them, even though a lot of the LLMs have reduced hallucinations quite dramatically, even though that problem is never really going to go away. But a lot of it is based on bias, and bias based on the fact that the data on which the LLMs are trained typically are English spoken data and knowledge posts. And by the way, the people deciding which data they should use to train tend to be male, American, and so forth. So there's a real issue, and which is oftentimes called out and more called out as a real issue of lack of diversity and lack of practical elements of the data that we have access to with regular LLMs. So the Food Safety for Africa project is multidimensional. What we do within that project is really capturing knowledge, the relevant knowledge in a knowledge system. And the way we capture that knowledge and capture the best solutions and information is twofold. One is we leverage AI to mine more than 1 billion data points to look at very specific cases on aflatoxin, on leafy greens and tomatoes in Africa, for example, in South Africa, which is one of the use cases, on fish, on all the specific use cases that we are treating in the Food Safety for Africa project. Now, a lot of that is digitally available, and we curate that with the help of Wageningen and Pretoria University. So only the best goes into this database. On top of that, we're reaching out to partner organizations that have tacit bottom-up knowledge. Yuna talked about this also. This is the kind of knowledge that is very hard to access. Very hard to access. So there's no kind of AI agent that can trace that easily. So we're doing a lot of experimentation and testing to make sure that we capture the knowledge that is bottom up, that's never been published, and how do we do that en masse in a way that is possible, not just through a couple of one-offs, but really scalable. And then once we have that, and we're still building that database, we allow interaction with the knowledge database, amongst others with large language models. So let me just show you quickly. You see the shortcode here. I think it works on both Android and also Apple. So this is the kind of the Food Safety for Africa platform. Is still in beta version, but we'll launch the final version, and it gives access to solutions, knowledge, post, and news. Because of a limited time, I'm just gonna ask one question. So, for example, by the way, this is meant in the first phase at least to go to researchers, and then over time, and academics, and over time also policy makers and other people in the value chain. So if you want to know, one of the countries that have done a pretty decent job in food safety in the informal market is Rwanda. And you can ask the question, well, how has Rwanda been able to do so, right? So what are the elements? And then we're using RAG to search in our own database and what are the different elements of that. And so it's giving you a kind of a short description of the different elements of it, also some organizations, and then it gives you also the sources of this, right? So you can look at the sources. You can look at, for example, you open one of the sources, so it's very much we wanted to make sure that all the publications stay at their source, which is the case, and you can actually create your knowledge about that in much more depth. So now this is just the start of the whole process. What's next? We really are exploring, as we speak, very effective ways to capture tacit knowledge that is curated, practical, contextualized, diverse. So we're now looking into an amount of unstructured data and unstructured knowledge about the use case in Senegal. Most of it in French and some in Wolof, a local language. And some of it is interviews and videos, and some of it just text written down quickly. So we're trying to look at ways to capture this in all its depth, and capture that in the knowledge platform. The other one is, and I think some of you are aware of this, we're looking into data train connectivity. We call it data train connectivity. So connectivity between different databases that are both textual and numeric databases. Right? That has been done already in Africa, for example, on health, not yet on food to our knowledge, but we are working on that. And then based on that, and as an addition to that, we're also looking into AI agents for more complex processes, where the AI agent would depending on what you're looking for, decide which database to go looking for the answers. And so that's obviously at the cutting edge of the AI thinking right now. And so we expect a lot of evolution in the next couple of months and years. That's it for me. So glad to answer any question you may have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter, for this overview in food safety in Africa. Questions are coming in the Q&A and in the chat, so please use those also to answer them. Let me move to Pratik from Kisan AI to share his pitch. Pratik, over to you.
Yes. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. We are basically tackling this problem from a startup perspective compared to the other colleague who develop from either non-profit or the other way. And we have been working in bringing AI in agriculture for a while. I have a background in AI ML research, and we started in India to develop different AI models, for example, like a land price prediction, detecting land boundary using images and all. And we also worked on diffusion models. These are another way that generative AI has been helping out and helping farmer with creating like a stores or like label for whenever they are trying to sell some commodities in the market, or like improving the image when they're trying to share it somewhere. And during the entire process, we felt one thing as a startup, we are basically like, limited with the funds that we have, and which is we felt like many agri businesses around face the similar problems. You have knowledge, you have services and product, but in agriculture, getting to the farmers and telling them, educating them how to use your tools or applications or your model is really difficult. And it's not just that, like, they keep forgetting how to use it or the benefits of them. So you have to keep going back and forth, explaining them. So we also realized at that time that while we have been working on developing models, we are not able to reach out with the limited budget that we have to the farmer in developing nation. And the reasons that we found out are related to literacy, language barrier, fragmented knowledge. It's expensive, time consuming. And then also we also saw that the farmers rely more on their local colleagues in the village and all, instead of like going out and checking universities. And meanwhile, we also saw that
Pratik, can I just, sorry to disturb you for a moment, but we cannot see your presentation. So if you could reshare it, that would be very helpful. Sorry to break your flow in this way, Pratik.
Okay, let me try it again. Was it not visible from the beginning?
Yeah, we could just see a gray, how to say that, a gray screen without seeing a presentation. It's still,
I'm sorry.
Still doesn't want to be visible, so I'm not sure what's going on.
Okay, yeah. Sorry.
People say your story was even good without a presentation, but it's, there it is. Now we can see it.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Yeah, sorry for the couple of wasted minutes. So So these are the different models that I was talking about that we are working, like a boundary detection using vision model and a stable diffusion to automatically create labels from the commodity. Farmer can just select the commodity they want to sell and the name, and then we create like a AI generated labels and so other things. But we face the problem where as a startup with the budget that we have, we are not able to reach out. And meanwhile, while building all this model, we have been building massive data set. We almost digitized the entire India's the agriculture extensions, uh, like farmer science centers, the agriculture university, and all the data that has been public already. We started digitizing because we wanted to curate it and as a help out farmer to fill up the information they want. And this is the time we realized that we have mass amount of data that we have already curated, and we ended up creating one of the first kind of the voice end-to-end voice-based multilingual co-pilot, we call it, because like we do know the name now called RAG, but when we developed the RAG was almost paper, and the technique was not even out there. There were no libraries, so we have to use FICE and some other like hard coded one. So we started by hosting and figuring out the different models for voice uh, in different languages. We started with supporting 10 Indian languages. Now we support almost all the languages available in the world. And we have like a different type of models we have figured out which actually works for voice and text, and supported by the knowledge base that we started with curating in India. We are now actually going and expanding further and creating this voice bot, which was native, a conversation where farmer can click a button and start talking, and it will provide you the information back. And we also heard for a lot from the farmer as a as a startup that we its advice is good what you're providing, the agronomy advice, but we would like to have action associated with it. Basically, just do not give us advice, but see if we can buy something or complete an action or book a service and all. So that's how we started adding all this thing. And this is the basically application which was launched around end of 2022 2023. And what ended up happening is that as a startup, we also realized that the generative AI is like expensive way to run because the inference and GPU cost a lot. And we have to figure out a business model. As a startup, we do not sell product or services. So we have to figure out a way where we can actually either monetize the where our B2F, so business to farmer model is working out. We have product market fit. And the idea at that time was that like we start expanding this thing into actually enabling more. So we started with the agronomy data that we have. Then we added market and weather data. So now we have this thing which we actually kind of helping out with the business partner that we have, where farmer can directly talk to the tabular data that inside we are already tracking for the market, and they can say what is the base price for grapes around me. So it will go around the market and find the base price, or the farmer can query, give me the average price in January, which month give me the base price. So all different type of analytics that they can do on the market data. So we are basically adding all different type of modality, and this is a again we also talk about the agent. So we have this agent working for more than a year, and we are actually building now a multi-agent system, orchestration system, where we have a soil tasting pipeline, uh, integrated pest management pipeline, weather, market data, and also the commercial product as a part being integrated as a part of this thing. And for this particular pilot, we have been selected by Government of India as a part of the India AI Innovation Challenge, where we will be kind of developing this thing on a larger scale. And the thing that is we realize as a startup, we cannot actually keep relying on larger expensive models. So we actually started building every vertical specific model. So this is something in 2023 December we launched called Denu. So Denu is basically agri vertical specific model designed right now trained on Indian agriculture data. We have right now collected more than 1.6 million different data set instructions, around 4,000 plus topics that cover almost all the knowledge that has been produced in India, and even a more question answer pair. And this has been trained on the conversation that we have collected on our like a farmer facing platform, including with this lot of synthetic data that has been generated from this knowledge. And we are continuously improving. We have 2.0 version. We even actually added a vision LLM. So we have, it's from around 100,000 different pest and disease images we added that as a part of the model. And now we have something which is actually Like you can take a picture and we'll provide you the disease and all. And all of our models are actually open source. So you can go to Hugging Face, check out how it's working, or you can go to Dhenu.ai, where some of the models are, we are making it free available for someone to use as a API, and they can check it out how it works. These are the models designed for farmers. So it understands farmers query well. Instead of like giving you answer like a marketing folks, the idea for the model is that it understand like what kind of queries that farmer ask and generate quick, brief, and like very targeted answer for them. And that is something we have been improving and utilizing right now. We even have trained a climate resilient agriculture model. We were working with UNDP for CRA boat, and for that we are trying to develop and train a model that actually just focus on answering climate resilient and sustainable agriculture question answer. But as a startup, our actual business model is working with agri businesses. So right now we work with four Fortune 500 companies and many public companies in India, South America, the US, and probably we'll gonna start working in Africa too. And the idea is that the knowledge platform that and the multi-agent orchestration system that we have, that basically behaving as enterprise Jarvis for agribusinesses, where on the one side you can have all different type of data from the organization, from agronomy, product catalog, user manual, support, sales, speech, and everything going inside. This data get curated and stored as like a knowledge platform. And then on the other side, we are enabling different type of use cases. The farmer advisory we already did. We have also like a SaaS type of application for sales team inside, internal sales team, which utilizes some of the database component from the knowledge base, and they can enable and have a personal sales assistant or sales co-pilot. So different co-pilot that right now we have, and with different companies we are already kind of piloting. Actually, just the results came out that one of the application that we built with the Syngenta won the jury award for GenAI application. That happened, I think, yesterday only. So yeah, we've been working with larger corporations. The idea is that, like, while we do not have product and services, these folks do have. They make things and they already sell, and they also face the same problem. And they have like a real item to sell, not just a high level research experimentation stuff. They are already generating and selling and reaching out to the farmer, selling billions of dollars of stuff. So can we actually improve the process? Can we actually educate the farmer about the services that this agribusinesses provide? Because ultimately, if we can cut down the hurdles in between, the cost will be kind of shared and the margin will be kind of increased on the both sides. So farmer can get a cheaper and better product, while businesses can also reduce the amount they're spending on actually acquiring a customer. And some of the achievement that we have, we talked about benchmarking. So right now, agriculture, we do not have like a golden benchmark, kind of like universally accepted golden benchmark. So recently, University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign with us and Bayer launched Agri Benchmark Consortium. So we are because we have been training the models for a while, and the Bayer has another model they train called LI, and UIUC has some work going on. So we are basically creating this AgriBench consortium. So we're going to start building from the data set that we already have. Yeah, we have our consumer application going on, which we use to kind of get how the farmer interact with the generative AI. But this is not something where we actually make the money. So we have a lot of farmers already using it, but that is not something where actually kind of as a business model we use it. And one of the interesting project that we are working, and this is something related to the climate change. We were working with the UNDP on the Decre project, where they were collecting a lot of climate data. So we use generative AI to actually get the sensor information, which is tabular, and converting per location based climate insights. So these are the climate insight for every district and sub-district that we generated, which actually get part of the RAG pipeline. So when we have like a curated knowledge from particular district or suggestions that need to be go with the university data associated with the location and the climate data, and then using the model which will actually provide them like a appropriate advice for for agronomy, which is kind of also function of their climate data. So this is something we did. We are expanding this particular project. I think pretty soon we started with the 5,000 farmer and targeting for going out from 100,000 farmers for the next one. Yeah, that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Pratik, for this insightful presentation. Please, all questions again, question and answer. I think there's a lot of interaction happening there, so that's great. We now turn to a bit different perspective from Henry van Boosteden from the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Henry works at the innovation department and hopefully can share a bit what their story is with generative AI and how they looked at it. So over to you, Henry.
Thank you very much, Sander. Let me try and share my screen. I hope it works because I didn't test it before. So can you see it? I can't see it myself yet, but
Oh, I can see you. This is
well, it's better to see my screen than seeing me, I think. I don't think it works like this. Okay, let me try it in a different way. It says I can't display content. Sorry, for some reason it says I can't display content. I'm very sorry about that, Sander, but maybe if you want to move first to Inder and then I can come in later.
Yeah,
I can share my presentation with Inder then.
Yeah, or send it to me and Inder, and then we will put it ready. Thanks.
Okay.
And Inder is presenting now. He can multitask, but I don't know if he can multitask with 3 things at the same time. So Inder, then we move to you for giving the overview of what we are doing with Digital Agri Hub and the Agri chat functionality we added there. If that's okay by you, of course. Then there's the presentation.
Sure. Thank you, Sander. I'm trying to change the layout of the presentation, but I can already start and multitask, as you mentioned at the beginning. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning and good evening as well, based on where you are. Before I actually jump to the presentation and talk about Digital Agri Hub and the chatbot it has developed, I first want to address the elephant in the room and share a common sentiment with everyone. I am a researcher in digital business innovation and not an AI expert as that of other panelists and speakers present here today. What my perception of AI is that it's going to change the market dynamics, and we all have to learn new skills to be adapted, to acclimatize to the workforce. So I'm the living example here on learning new skills every day, and thus presenting here the Digital Agri Hub. And I hope it's same sentiment for you all as well, that it's going to enhance your skill set and not going to take over your jobs. Considering Digital Agri Hub is deployed in low and medium income countries, where we track the evolution of digital agriculture and solutions deployed, and we try to provide knowledge and information in terms of data and insight to stakeholders, whether these are solution providers, impact investors, government organization, value chain actors, or academia. And based on the data and insight, we produce different knowledge products, but also we have a 1,000+ digital solutions deployed in low and medium income countries, but we are not the only one currently who prepare such insights. At the industry level, we do see that there are multiple organizations which produce numerous knowledge products, such as FAO, World Bank. But if we talk about digitalization sector exclusively, the very first report, which was published in the year 2018-2019 by CTA Dalberg, and then afterwards by USAID and Beanstack, the sectoral report, which was published in 2023. The common pattern, what we observe is by the time a report is published, from a spectrum of a small bit of information to a lot of bit of information get outdated. And it is nothing to blame. It's because the sector is evolving at a skyrocketing pace. impact metrics are developing with time. There are rapid developments happening as well at the same time, and there is a strong technology push happening at the same time as well. So what is the way to stay updated to all the developments happening around the world and get real-time, up-to-date information? So this is an initiative of Digital Agri Hub to bring all the resources together, reduce the redundancy, and provide real-time and up-to-date information via our chatbot, which we have named Agri Chat AI. The mission of this chatbot is to have its own knowledge base and try to analyze and synthesize information and provide information based on the different D4Ag reports being published not only by Digital Agri Hub, but also by other actors which are working in the sector. And as other panelists also touched upon, that we are also using large language models, AI, GenAI, and Retrieval-Augmented Generation to use the functionality of RAG and using prompt engineering to provide the information which not only reduce the redundancy, but also close the knowledge gaps and provide trusted information. And because Digital Agri Hub is a public good, DID's GenAI supported chatbot is also a societal and innovative product what we have developed. And now I would like to also talk a bit about the methodologies. If people here who are also learning how to cope up and then come up with the new way of working with AI. So as we mentioned, RAG uses functionality of its vector knowledge base, try to split the documents into multiple sections, which can be stored in its vector base. And once it is done, then it tries to use this information via its knowledge base, which is the documents which we have fed into it, but also the large language model which is behind it. But for Digital Agri Hub, what we also did that we shared the APIs of our dashboard. So the knowledge base not only focus on its knowledge products, but also the real-time dashboard insights. So the database which is behind the dashboard, and then try to provide output to the input query. And then via steps 2, you can see that how this process is all entailed. It's quite theoretic and technical, but this is the simplest way of explaining it. And once the information is available, we try to deploy it, and then ultimately the assistant is visible on the chatbot on the Digital Agri Hub website. And this is also the similar framework what we are using as Ubuntu Peter was referring to. But I also want to touch base here when it comes to the human-centered approach, that when we started working on this chatbot, we had a completely different approach, and we ended up with a completely different approach as a deliverable output. So initially on the left, as also Pratik was touching base upon, that you can develop custom-based chatbots using open source LLMs such as Llama or now DeepSeek, but it requires development skills and great monetary investment as well. So we try to use some low threshold and cutting edge opportunities such as Explore GPT from OpenAI. And then while exploring GPT functionality, we realized that although it's good to be able to integrate the APIs of an external platform, there is a challenge that you cannot integrate it as a chatbot on an external website. And there is a closed LLM lock-in barrier as well. So what we did that we chose OpenAI Assistant functionality of OpenAI. The pros is that it allows regular updates of the model, so user interaction is enhanced. But the only drawback is that it's financially not feasible unless it's commercially feasible and viable. And I know Pratik also touched based on that because there are costs associated, and you have to make sure that the product has reached a certain level of readiness that it is not only providing information to a user what a user is looking for, but also is financially viable for this to be sustainable. And what implementation process we followed, as I mentioned that in the knowledge base, we use 50 plus knowledge articles, whether these are reports published by World Bank, FAO, but also scientific articles, or if there are blog articles published by such development institutes, we try to capture that from mid-2022 onwards, because there are multiple LLMs behind the chatbot. And based on the LLM which is chosen, we have to make sure that in order to provide the real-time and up-to-date information, we try to capture all the knowledge products as much as we can when the cutoff date was reached. And once the chatbot was ready, we deployed it on the Digital Agri Hub website. It is available on the homepage and Digital Agri Hub's dashboard if you would like to access it. This is just an example on how we see the importance of choosing appropriate LLM. On the right, starting from the left, we see ChatGPT 3.5, the free version of ChatGPT. If you ask a question related to Digital Agri Hub, as we also heard that it can create hallucination and give you inappropriate information. So we asked a question that how many digital solutions are deployed in country France, which is a high income country, and initially, it gave a response that there are 6 solutions deployed, which is a complete hallucination. So what we did, when we used multiple LLMs and then ultimately chose one for our chatbot, we also gave a system instruction to make sure that it adhered to the disclaimer, but also the propositions of the Digital Agri Hub. And then ultimately, you can see that chatbot can provide the information which is almost as accurate as it can provide. As of course, the industry is still evolving, as so are the LLMs. It can still make mistakes, but based on the system instructions and RAG functionality, you can see it has the power to provide you utmost appropriate information as it can. This is my second last slide, which I wanted to mention, and I think it's also important to know whatever products are being currently developed, setting guardrails and evaluation is key. We also did that to also revise our system instructions and RAG functionality. We also get in touch with different practitioners to make sure that the output which is currently being generated is accurate and is meeting the industry standards. We also added disclaimers to make sure that users just not take the output for granted, but also need to validate the output from expert opinion, while also referring to the Digital Agri Hub's dashboard when it refers to the data behind the dashboard. And in order to make sure that it is providing information without giving a lot of latency, we also made some changes so that the user experience is enhanced. So I would welcome you all to land onto the website of Digital Agri Hub. Our chatbot is already live since Monday. If you have time, please try to use the chatbot and see if it has the opportunity to provide you the answer you are looking for. The chatbot is compatible to mobile phone, iPads, or your desktop using Windows and Mac. And happy to hear feedback, because there's also functionality to receive feedback via the chatbot directly. So thank you very much for listening. And if there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer in the Q&A. Thank you.
Thanks, Hinder, for this presentation, for stepping in before you're actually supposed to speak. So I now have the presentation from Henry, and please continue adding questions to the chat and to the question and answer. I think we have good discussion and good answers there already. So Henry, let me share my presentation, and I think you're already visible. Let's see if that. There we go.
Thanks a lot, Sander, for stepping in and helping me out. Can you share it in full screen?
Yes, there we go. It's so yeah, you're seeing the screen now, right? It's on the right way. Yes.
Yes. If you can kindly move to the next slide, then I will start. So as some of you maybe know, VAU and Wageningen University work together on a project called Large, where we've been working on developing prompt scenarios, prompt benchmarks, and Q&A pairs. And also, for example, in the presentation of Digital Green, this Q&A came up now as a very valuable way of looking at a body of knowledge. And as of last year, the status was both promising to showcase enormous potential, but also, to be frank, that it's not performing well enough for direct production scenarios so far. Next slide, please. So we're working on many use cases, and I'm not going into the details because that would be much too extensive. But there's many different projects that are already using AI, and we're also having several partnerships that are working on the use of generative AI, for example, also with Digital Green. So one of the most interesting one is working on digital advisory services for different target audience, of course, farmers, but also extension workers, to do prompt engineering, for example, for the nationally determined contributions database, classification, policy monitoring, policy making, and also working on serious games, and of course the chatbots themselves to access the VAU knowledge base. Next slide, please. So there's two initiatives. First, the first one, Farmer Chat, where we have been working with Digital Green in Ethiopia to make Farmer Chat available to agripreneurs in the country through the global network and digital agriculture innovation hubs, so they can provide better services to the farming community. So as a tool that facilitates agripreneurs and startups to provide better services. And also Agri LLM, maybe some of you have heard about this initiative, which is now starting, which is more focusing on creating an LLM that talks or that understands agriculture and food and agriculture, with the promise that it can empower smallholder farmers to support global food security. Next slide, please. But what is extremely important for us is that we don't just tap into the potential of AI, but we do it in a more holistic way. And this is why we, as an organization, became a member of the Digital Public Goods Alliance in 2022. And they're providing a whole range of digital public goods. And I'd like to focus a little bit on the AI models, which in the beginning was not a big area. The focus was more on the provision of open source software and open data. But more recently, there's also a whole range of open AI models that are made available. And for us, this is important for specific two use cases I want to bring to your attention. Next slide, please. So that is more the use case where you do sort of global analysis using big data and geospatial data and big compute. And that use case is, for example, used through our hand-in-hand geospatial platform or agri-informatics platform to look at issues related to plant health or water accountability or market prices. But also specifically, and that's the top layer you see, specifically for farmer services, like, for example, digital advisory, several cases were mentioned, but also the provision of cash and early warning specifically to farmers. And what is needed in terms of digital public goods, for example, farmer registration, and how the digital public goods that are available through the digital public goods registry of the Alliance can support us in satisfying these use cases. Next slide, please. But for us as an organization, it's very important that we are also putting in place some guardrails and boundaries, and that's why we signed up in 2020 already for the Rome Call for AI Ethics, focusing on 3 impact areas, which is ethics, education, and rights. and promoting a range of principles. And I just wanted to focus a little bit on the transparency and the inclusion aspect. So there are several predictions that AI is opens up a whole range of opportunities, economic, social, environmental, but also a big risk that this will actually widen the divide. And for us, it's important that this is not going to widen the triple divide, so gender, rural, and digital divide. So we need to be very intentional in the way that we use AI and not just assume that this will close the divide, but make sure that it's following certain ethical principles and that we use it to in the best possible way. Next slide, please. So our role is also to work with several communities within the ecosystem, and we do that through several activities. So we're together with the Digital Public Goods Alliance organizing Reboot the Earth, also with UNICT and UN Youth. And this is basically trying to make all these open AI models, open software available for startups to come up with better solutions. And maybe one thing that has not been mentioned a lot is the importance of knowledge and trustworthy content, right? So some of these LLMs, they are trained on a whole a big body of knowledge, but not necessarily the trusted knowledge from several of our organizations now, and it's a real challenge to make sure that this knowledge is made available in an actionable way to small-scale producers, and we are organizing several events or co-organizing several events to advocate for the use of trusted knowledge. And last year we've been doing that through Reboot the Earth, the COP, the Africa Microfinance Week, and also the Girls and ICT Day. Next slide, please. And also this year we will be organizing again Reboot the Earth in several countries, FAO specifically Morocco and Ethiopia, and the final event will take place in Rome in October this year. Next slide, please. And also to understand what are the different roles that different organizations play between private sector, civil society, UN agencies. We're organizing the Digital Agriculture and AI Innovation Dialogue. This will take place at the end of this month in Rome. And together with these key actors to also come up with a roadmap which tries to well, it's an interactive document. It's not like a one-off to see how we can best play together as a ecosystem of players. Next slide, please. So in the dialogue, there's participants from private sector, also FAO working group members, academia, and donors. Next, please. And they will work on designing this roadmap, which is displayed on the next slide, please, Sander. So the aim is to identify and prioritize high impact AI use cases. We see many different use cases popping up, but not all of them are very well articulated and also define what is the role of the different actors. So to connect these use cases for inclusive and climate resilient agri-food systems, in a recent study, for example, the unjust climate, it became very clear that the impact of climate change has a huge effect on small-scale producers and mostly people that are not responsible for this climate change. So how can we make the best use of AI to support them with actionable insights to become more resilient? To establish this collaboration, I mean, we have a very good collaboration already with Wageningen University, for example, on the digital Agri Hub together with ATO Knowledge Base and our STI portal to share information in two directions. So to see what kind of innovations, what kind of digital technologies can have an impact. So this kind of collaboration we are seeking also with Digital Green and others to see how we can use, for example, farmer chat in farmer field schools. So there's a pilot now starting in Mozambique, and we're very excited about that as well. To also define an investment agenda. So who's doing what? I mean, if you really want to make use of all these AI models, there's also a cost associated to that. So who's going to bear the cost for that? So what kind of investments are needed also in terms of connectivity? So, 2.6 billion people do not have access to meaningful connectivity, as was mentioned by the Broadband Commission last year. So there's a huge investment agenda attached to that as well. And to ensure this is done in an ethical way. And I mentioned the Rome Call for AI Ethics, but there's also some other mechanisms through the UN system to build in these safeguards. So next slide, please. This is just a call to action to join us in the Office of Innovation and also with FAO at large to work together and make sure that AI is used to leave no one behind. Over to you, Sander.
Thanks. Thanks, Henry, for sharing these insights. And I'm happy to have been helpful with managing the presentation. So I think that brings us to the end of all the speakers. I hope you can you have put all your questions already in the chat. We are running a bit behind schedule, as is usual with these things, a fair bit, I would say. So that's unfortunate, but I think there were many relevant insights from the presentations. So what I will do is that I will post to the presenters a few questions, and then I to share all ideas about. I think are sort of coming through the presentations we hear about all the time, and then I think we will move to the closing part of this session. So what I heard a lot through your presentations is this point of hallucinations and having truthful answers. I think there were some. But if you listen to presentation on GenAI, it's sometimes difficult to capture how this really works. What people are really doing and how do you know? So maybe just I will start a bit in the order of the presenters to give a short reflection on that. That I think will be very helpful. So Jonah, could you share with your perspective is on hallucinations and maybe how you deal with it if a farmer asks farmer chat a question?
Yeah. I think that's a great question. So I'll say that we have been working on hallucinations for a while. Our farmer chat is a deployment, and there are things that we do as we set up the tech stack that then we deploy and that we use to deploy farmer chat. So we do a lot of things and pre-testing beforehand. So we've been able to reduce hallucinations by doing things like retrieval-augmented generation. So actually kind of like grounding the answers into a corpus. So that has been able to do a lot in terms of the reductions. We also have been employing other evaluation techniques, like for example, red teaming. What we care about is not just hallucination, but also things like bias. So we've been doing red teaming and bringing in experts to look at questions. For example, are the answers gender biased? And then we also provide an opportunity for users and farmers themselves to provide input. They can give thumbs up and down to responses, as well as say, why they don't think the answer is good, including if the information is inaccurate or incorrect, or whether it's something that they just can't apply it because there's a lack of that thing in the market. But then the other thing that I'll say is that we also don't treat hallucinations always as a bug. They're also a signal. we tend to study where they happen. They're indicators, for example, things like training gaps or retrieval limits. By actually understanding and having users and experts and our internal team flag them, what we can do is make this hallucination more of a community-driven process, and then also use it to then fix our back-end content repository.
Okay, thanks, Jona. Peter, what's your perspective on this?
Yeah, first of all, the hallucinations is still there. It's just much more subtle. So the early days hallucination used to be very obvious, oftentimes, and there's lots talked about. But right now they become much more subtle, so they're still there. They've decreased for the large language models in general. We have been not seeing any hallucination, because really what we train the model to do and schedule the model to do is really to work on our corpus only. So when based on a certain question, there's no answer in our own corpus, we basically, the model is going to say, this context doesn't provide enough, or we don't have enough context to answer this question. So we rather say we don't have the answer in the current corpus than to just open it up. So we have not seen any. I think the learning is that the combination of large language model with a highly curated corpus and a strong setup of a RAG is for our experience so far actually the best way to avoid hallucinations.
Thanks, Peter. Pratik, what's your? I mean, we have different strategies, so I think this is interesting because we have different strategies of dealing with hallucinations, and maybe hallucinations are not even a problem. And as Jona mentioned, it's a sign of something. So, Pratik, I'm curious if you have another strategy or another thinking about this.
So I think some of the points are right. So it starts with the like from the actually AI ML side, not the agronomy side. The hallucination, the base step is to have like a highly curated data, right, which reduces a lot of problem to begin with. Then you are doing RAG for grounding. So in some of the things that we face, that even with the highly curated data, and RAG is just like an extension with like a little given context, and the models and LLMs are stochastic models, so they are not deterministic model. And for us, we are deploying with the agribusinesses on to their customers. So we have, if we generate hallucination, we cannot just say that like, you know, the LLM can make a mistake because you're suggesting a wrong pesticide or wrong fertilizer, right? So we have done good amount of investment to actually reduce hallucination. And we work basically with this agronomy, the entire agronomy team of the agribusinesses like Syngenta, Bayer, and other folks who are doing it. So generating evaluation functions, evaluation benchmark, and then we do run like multiple Monte Carlo simulation based on figuring out what is actually the pointer data set or the chunk that is actually producing this particular hallucination, and that checked against the eval. But the question was how are we reducing it, right? So these are basically tasting method, right? To reduction, we have figured out a couple of ways, and the two things that I can talk about is, first is the query enhancement part. So that's where our model that we have trained basically understand what farmers are talking about. So a lot of data in a conversation actually enhances the query to add or remove the context, because farmer, when they're asking question, tend to ask a lot of things around like their story and most of things which really do not care for the context. And when you do the semantic search inside your vector DB, and if you have like additional context, it tends to fetch like a wrong chunks, right? So that's we reduces by actually doing query enhancement. And the second part we have done is creating like a knowledge graph. So because we've been working for building this knowledge data sets for like 6 years. So we have built like a huge amount of knowledge graph with the different names of the disease, the relationship, the pest, the fertilizers, the chemical, and everything around for the different regions. That after the RAG, we go and pass this thing through the knowledge graph, which actually reduces some of the like the last stage hallucination. Because I think one of the example is like you have a product which works for larva, and you have a product that works for whitefly, and both of that chunks get extracted from the semantic repository or like vector DB. the LLM will do hallucinate. It will actually answer for both while you're looking for just a one answer, right? You're not asking for two pesticide or like crop protection, which work for larva and whitefly. You're looking for just the larva, right? But LLM really do not understand. It thinks it's like a next stage, so it will provide both. Now the farmer may not be educated enough to understand that particular like difference, and he will actually end up ordering something for whitefly. So those are the things can be solved by the knowledge graph, where we actually kind of come down to say like, okay, only the larva related crop protection need to be suggested.
Thanks, Pratik. That's very insightful. So you use sort of the pre-knowledge and the knowledge graph to try to bound the LLM. That's another strategy to deal with it. Henry, maybe may I ask you if you have insights to share on hallucinations and how to deal with them, or what your perspective is on how bad they are in a way?
Well, maybe a perspective I'd like to bring now is that, of course, there's a huge hype now about how far this kind of chatbots can replace, for example, extension workers now, or people that are working with the local communities, providing advice on best practices. I think one way is to make sure there's always a human component, right? So it's really used to augment the capabilities and not to necessarily replace, especially if it comes to very sensitive issues like the detection of plant diseases or animal diseases now. So to always make sure there's also experts involved in verifying if the output of the chatbot and the LLM is actually correct. And maybe a little bit similar to what was said by the colleague from Digital Green is also to work on a set of question and answer pairs on the that is checked by experts. I know, for example, Digital Green, they're already working on the question and answer pairs from Farmer Chat, and also feeding that back to extension system and the cooperatives that are working with the farmer communities to see if the answers that were provided by Farmer Chat are actually accurate now. And we're doing something similar also for Agri LLM now, to make sure that the question and answers, they are checked by our experts to make sure that they are actually accurate now and they're not providing wrong information. So there are several ways that we can build in the checks and balances. I think this is a very important aspect for us to make sure that we live up to the standards that we set ourselves by signing up for the Rome Call for AI Ethics, for example. Over.
Thanks. I think that's a very useful perspective, Henry, with this human and machine combination that we actually still need. But it also, I think, it introduces this idea of having sort of going back to these digital public goods. That was also in your presentation, and we need this also for this technology to have these prompt benchmarks. And I think I saw that in presentations also to have these reference points like an Agri LLM, or have these common reference points that we can all use and build from, and this way really accelerate the sector in a way that we are still maybe in agriculture struggling a bit all alone, and it's difficult to sometimes do things really together. So it's a very that sounds very good. Also, FAO is hosting the AI and digital dialogue at the end of this month to really build this agenda and the way forward. Okay, we have 10 minutes left. I think I will now thanks all for sharing your insights on this question. Maybe I didn't give you the floor, but I don't know if you have something very short to add on this question of hallucination. First thought I should let our guests speak. Otherwise, I will.
Sure, I could be very brief with the example of Digital Agri Hub, what we did there. In order to reduce the hallucination, as Pratik rightly mentioned, curated database is the key to make sure that it has the context knowledge it requires, and also adhering to the propositions of the Digital Agri Hub. And we also try and make sure that when a user is asking a query, it always generate an output with a reference to it, and not an hallucinated output. So we have tried to revise our system instructions from time to time in order to minimize hallucinations as much as possible. So in brief, this was my contribution. Thanks.
Thanks, Hinder. So let me turn over to Fadi and Laura, who are organizing the second webinar in this series, which focuses more on the regenerative agriculture part, and where Fadi and Laura also contributed to the D group's discussion we had that sort of led to this webinar. So Fadi, can I give you the floor for to share your thoughts and perspectives shortly?
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fadi Mujahid. I'm CEO of Green Mawarid and digital agriculture expert. What we will have for the next webinar, which is our focus after this webinar, is how to use GenAI for regenerative agriculture. For those of you who are not familiar with regenerative agriculture, we will have more full session, about 10 minutes at the beginning of next webinar about regenerative agriculture. But it's a farming approach where you rebuild soil health and restore natural ecosystem, and it has so many regenerative practices such as cover crops, companion crops, integrated livestock and fish stock. The main point about regenerative agriculture is that it needs a lot of design efforts at the beginning and as you go on with your farming. So it needs a lot of effort and work in the design process. The next webinar, which is exploring the potential of GenAI in regenerative agriculture design, will focus on regenerative agriculture design process, and then our approach for advanced technical approach to support this design process for regenerative agriculture. We will have some case studies from two parties, and we will also talk about ethics in action for this process in general. The date will be April 22nd, and this is the QR code for the upcoming webinar if you would like to scan it to attend it next time. Laura, if you would like to add something about this upcoming webinar.
Thank you, Fadi. Hi, everyone. I'm Laura, and I'm here just outside Toronto in Canada, where we're still fighting winter. Anyways, just to add on to Fadi very, very quickly, what I'll be doing as part of the webinar is to bring forward case studies where regen, ag, and AI are making strides here in Canada with farmers. And so I've talked to a few different folks, and maybe in the US too. So there are some examples that are certainly looking hopeful and on the ground. So that's what we're going to contribute to the next webinar. Thank you. Oh, and by the way, I'm the founder of a digital knowledge sharing platform called Farmer Community, and we're beta testing in the Americas. So yeah, that's how I'm part of D4 Ag along with Fadi. Thank you. Thanks, Fadi.
Okay, thank you, Laura. I hope everyone can see the QR code. Sander, is it visible?
Yes, visible. And it works. Yeah, it works great. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. That's it for our side, me and Laura. Hope to see you next time on the next webinar.
Yes, thanks, Fadi and Laura, for introducing the second one, which will happen then on 22nd of April. I think we had today a very good, rich webinar introducing this technology, but also hopefully giving a lot of clarity on what you can do and what you cannot do, and what the pitfalls are and what the challenges are by people who really develop this technology already in applications. So I'm very happy for the speakers today. Jonah from Digital Green, Peter from Ubuntu, Pratik from Kisan, and Henry from the FAO and Inder from Digital Agri Hub to share their perspectives and insight. I hope that's really, that gives you a, and I think they're pretty open to be contacted, and they shared your LinkedIn profile. So please follow up with them also directly with questions. Thank you also all for answering the questions in the chat while we were busy doing the webinar. I think that really helped to give clarity and hopefully establish some networking, but also have answers to these questions. What I think emerges sort of from this webinar is that, yes, we are doing a lot of nice applications for farmers, for policymakers, for yourself on different aspects of agriculture. So the technology is already, in a way, being introduced in agricultural solutions. And I think that's a very powerful message for today. But it needs more also to really scale and to bridge this gap to so many smallholder farmers in low and middle income countries, but also to policymakers and people in other roles. So that's also, hopefully you can get on board on this, and with the insights from this webinar, use that. A few points is that we need these sort of question answer combination prompts to really steer this development, so that we have a clear set of, this is when it's working and this is when it's not working. I think another point is that we need to treat these hallucinations not as mistakes necessarily, but also as an opportunity to improve and have targeted ways of improving them, whether it's through knowledge graphs, sort of pre-structured content into the structure, or really curated LLMs, or through having a human look at it, or to discuss it with experts. We really need to think about that, and you see it as an opportunity. And yes, we have to have some patience with this technology, so not expect miracles. It's not a magic wand. If you ask OpenAI something, or any of these solutions, Llama, whatever, that you don't get the best answer immediately. So that's, I think, another point to think about when you develop these technologies. Of course, there's a lot of points we didn't touch in this webinar. We didn't talk about closed versus open source. We didn't necessarily about the most promising use cases and how to do that in the next. So for that, we really invite you to join the next webinar. And thanks all for joining today. I hope it helped you, and a big thanks to our presenters and for joining us today. So thanks all, and have a good rest of the day, evening, or maybe start of the day, breakfast for some places. So enjoy.